My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's alive.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships of Bermudan and British Registry.
Coming up on this episode of the Entrepreneurial You.
If you put the attention on helping people, the money will take care of itself. I think if you're an entrepreneur, you can't be one of those people who says, I don't think about politics, man. You may not think about politics, but politics is thinking about you. A thought leader is someone who's known for knowing something. They're professionally famous.
Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Hey there, go-getters, my peak performers. It's Heneka Watkis-Porter, and you are tuned in to another episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast, the podcast that fuels your ambition and gives you the strategies to make your mark in the world of business and leadership. Today, we have an incredible story of resilience and success. Our guest, Nicky Billou, journeyed from Iran to Canada and transformed his experience into a mission to empower others as a best-selling author, podcast host, and mentor to top Canadian entrepreneurs. He's interviewed some of the biggest names out there. Yes, we're talking about people like Scott Adams and astronaut Chris Hadfield. So he's been doing the rounds, similar to what's happening here on the Entrepreneurial You. So just get ready to be inspired by a true champion of entrepreneurial greatness. So let me welcome, without further ado, Nicky Billou.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, absolutely. Let me just tell my audience of peak performers what we're talking about today. So our topic today is building influence, harnessing thought leadership to create your legacy. Now, today's episode, of course, is all about just harnessing and leveraging the power of thought leadership to create that lasting legacy because, life continues after we're not able to do the work that we are doing now. So we'll discuss how sharing your unique insights can impact lives and build meaningful influence. So if you want to inspire, you want to uplift, and you want to lead by example, tune in because this episode will give you a dose of that, a dose of inspiration. So before we get into the thick of things, I like to say, Nicky, I know you're a champion of thought leadership. So I'm going to do a little icebreaker. But if I have to ask you, if you could lead a thought on anything, no matter how random, what would it be? And of course, I'm hoping for something quirky like white chocolate should be sold, food group, stuff like that, something very quirky.
People should read fiction.
People should read fiction. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And you said that in the icebreaker, but it's like recently I think in May of 2024, I made that conscious decision because I'm always buying nonfiction books and doing the self-help and so on. And I remember coming from a very successful retreat in Atlanta, Georgia called Turning Point. And on my way back to Jamaica in the airport, I was looking for books and I decided, you know what, I'm not going to look in the realm of personal development and self-help and all these things. I am going for a novel. And believe me, Nikki, I became hooked on not hooked really, but just interested and intrigued by reading fiction. So you hit that nail on the head and you could be onto something, you know that?
I believe I am. I think fiction ennobles the soul and human beings connect through story, and fiction is story. And we need that in order to be connected to one another. Life is about people. Everything's a people game. It's not a money game, a business game, whatever. It's a people game. And people connect through story. The best way to do that is to really read beautifully written fiction. It just completely ennobles the soul.
People connect through story. People connect through story. Isn't that the truth? And you have heard the stories of many greats through your podcast. You've been interviewing, similar to what we do here over on the Entrepreneurial You, have some of those biggest names, and the stories that we hear on a day-to-day basis, it's just interesting how similar we are when we listen to the stories of others. So tell me about some of those stories that you've heard, Nikki, and how it has transformed your thinking, your thought process.
Well, that's a great question. Before I get into that, let me tell you a bit about my own backstory.
Yes,
so I'm actually originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. And my late father, God rest his soul, he could see the writing on the wall that this was not going to be a place to raise a Christian family. So what Dad did was he got together with my mom and they talked and they said, you know what, we need to get the kids out of here. We need to leave. And it took them a few years, but they did exactly that. And they got us out of Iran, first to Greece and then to Canada, where I now live. Now, at the time, I was a kid, right? I was 11 years old. I didn't want to leave my home or my buddies. But looking back, it was the single greatest thing Mom and Dad could have done for me and my two brothers. Because what they did is they took us from a legacy of tyranny to a legacy of freedom. I believe inside every human breast beats the living heart of freedom. Every man, every woman on this planet yearns to be free, to chart their own course, to march to the tune of their own drummer. And if you're an entrepreneur, freedom is the most important thing to you, because without freedom, you can't have free expression, you can't have free enterprise. That means you're going to have to rely on kissing the posteriors of the people in power in order to do business. And that's no way to live. You want to do business because you got a great idea and other people are interested in working with you. That's how you want to do business, and around the world, there have been all kinds of dark forces trying to take our freedoms away. I mean, you look during the lockdowns and the scamdemics of a few years back, they lied to us to take our freedoms away. They lied to us to force us to try to take these vaccines and all this other crazy stuff that now it turns out wasn't really a vaccine and wasn't really necessary. So I think if you're an entrepreneur, you can't be one of those people who says, I don't think about politics, man. You may not think about politics, but politics is thinking about you. And you got to be in favor of pro-freedom politicians, and you got to be promoting freedom, because that is what allows you to succeed. And to me, when I came to Canada from Iran, I had my father to be an example to me, because he was an entrepreneur too. If you knew him, Heneka, you would love this guy, man. Like if you were looking for work, he'd sit you in his office. He'd call all his buddies till he got you a job. If you were trying to start a business, he'd sit you in his office. He'd listen to your ideas and give you his best advice. He'd connect you with people with capital. He'd connect you with people who could be your clients. And if you were trying to buy a car or a home, right? Keep in mind, Iran was a second world country, right? Not advanced, developed banking systems at the time. So the bank wouldn't necessarily loan you all the money you needed. But you can go to my dad if you were his friend, and he'd give you a loan to top you up so you could buy your car, your house. People would try to pay him back 2-3 years later. If you tried to do that, he'd say, come on, forget about it. That was a gift, not a loan. And to this day, people come to me and go, hey, Nicky, are you Napoleon Billou's son? And I go, yeah. And they go, I need to tell you what your dad did for me. And it brings tears to my eyes. I wanted to be my father's son. My father would always tell me, Nicky, life is about people. It's not about money. Life is about that woman sitting in front of you. She's someone's daughter. She's someone's sister. She's someone's wife. She's a hero to somebody. Maybe someone just like you disappointed her in business. It's your job to restore her faith in humanity. And Dad would say every person on this earth needs someone to believe in them, someone to love them, someone to care about them. That is first and foremost what it's all about. I got into business because I was my father's son, and I help a lot of people with a lot of things, thought leadership, selling, pushing things forward. But more important than any of that, to me, is believing in people, loving on people, because that's what everybody needs, someone to believe in them, someone to love on them, especially when their own belief in themselves is wobbled.
Mm-hmm. So what you've mentioned, Nicky, is that your journey from Iran rather to Canada, it has actually shaped your outlook on freedom and even what success means, based on us following your journey here at the Entrepreneurial You. So tell me, what does freedom mean to you, Nicky, and what does success mean as well?
Well, that's a great question. I think freedom means being able to take care of the people you love, being able to make the choices you want to make. I'm super excited about helping people be free. That's why I do what I do. A lot of entrepreneurs, they're not free because they don't have the money that they want. They don't have the money that they need. They're stuck at a particular plateau in life. And a big reason for that is they're worried about how to sell. They're worried about how to market themselves. They don't know how to do that. And I'm all about showing people that the road to freedom for you is you got to make a difference for other people. You can't put the focus on you, right? That's why people are bad at selling, because they're nervous that, oh my God, is that person going to like me? Or they're going to buy from me? And all their attention shouldn't be on those thoughts. It should be on thoughts of, what does that person need? Can I help them? If you put the attention on helping people, the money will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. If you put the attention on helping people, the money will take care of itself. How does your personal story that you've described, and even which you've not spoken of just yet, how does that play into the work that you do with entrepreneurs today? Of course, you've alluded to it, but I'd love to hear some specifics from you, Nicky, as to how does that story play into the work? Well,
like I said, because of my father, I got into becoming an entrepreneur myself. And I've been very, very committed to helping other entrepreneurs succeed. So I'll tell you a couple of stories from my work with people. I think that might be a good way to do it. There was a woman that I met about 5 years ago. Great lady, super lady. She was a functional medicine doctor. And she did, reasonably well. She made 6 figures doing what she did. But she wanted to do better. You see, her father was dying of brain cancer, glioblastoma. And she wanted to honor him by becoming a successful entrepreneur because he had been a successful entrepreneur. So it's very important to her. So she came to me and she said, look, can you help me? And I said, yes. And she says, well, how do we do this? I said, well, let's have a look at your business. Who do you help? What do you do? She says, I can help anybody with any health problem. I said to her, that's not going to work. You can't be all things to all people. You got to narrow your focus. So we helped her narrow her focus. And the way we did it is we did this exercise called the ideal client exercise. We looked at all the clients that she had been working with over the years. And we made 3 lists. The first list was clients that honestly were people she really enjoyed working with. The second list were clients that she got really good results for. And the third list were clients that were easy to do business with. They paid in full, and it was simple, it was straightforward to do business with them. So we found out that there was a number of clients that were on all 3 lists. Those were her ideal clients. And after we made a list of who all those people were that were on all 3 lists, we noticed that they tended to be women. They tended to be professional women, married with kids, great lives, except for one area. They were over 45 and they felt that, they weren't young and beautiful anymore. And so this lady, her name is Dr. Vicky, she said, Nicky, getting older, it's inevitable, but aging isn't. You can be just as beautiful and healthy and vibrant in your 40s, 50s, 60s as you were in your 20s and 30s. So we helped her brand the program, Get Your Sexy Back. And wouldn't you know it, she doubled her income in her first year doing this. And then she doubled it again in her second year and doubled it again in her third year. She went from making 6 figures a year to making 6 figures a month, just 7 figures a year. And that's the power of having a narrow focus, of having a strong why, and of doing the work.
Power of having an R focus, a strong why, and doing the work. Isn't that the truth? It is so the truth. So I am going to talk to you a little bit about being a thought leader. What does that mean to you? And how does one become a thought leader? I mean, everything to be said has been said already, isn't it?
That's a great question. So the best way to understand what a commercial thought leader is, because that's different than being like, a professor at a university, that sort of thing. But a commercial thought leader is somebody who is different from an expert. Like an expert's someone who knows something, right? But experts are a dime a dozen. There's a lot of people who are experts, right? But nobody knows them. A thought leader is someone who's known for knowing something. They're professionally famous. Think about it in the world of cars. There's car companies out there, lots of them, right? So one of them is General Motors. Would you happen to know who's the president of General Motors? Probably not.
I don't know.
There's another company, though. It's called Tesla.
Of course.
Who's the president of
Tesla? Of course. Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Yes.
So what's the difference between Elon Musk and Mary Barra, who's the president of GM? So Elon is known for being the man who wants to save the planet by reducing fossil fuel emissions. He's known for being the man who created Neuralink to help people who are paraplegics be able to communicate with people and move parts of their body that otherwise their regular kind of brain neurons doesn't allow it to move. He's the man who's known for buying Twitter and turning it into X and a free speech platform. Everybody knows who this guy is and what he believes in and why he believes in what he believes in. As a result, people buy from his companies, right? He has no problem selling. People want to work for him. And also, people want to invest in his companies. That's the power of thought leadership. Now, imagine, maybe you're not Elon Musk. You're in a small business. You're a coach. You're a consultant. You're a speaker, a podcast host, an author, what have you. Well, could you be like Elon Musk in your business? Yes. The answer is yes, of course. And the way that you're going to do that, it's really straightforward. You're going to do that by basically creating a powerful message that helps people and inspires them to be the best version of themselves. And that's what Elon Musk did in his world. That's what you can do. So let's say you help entrepreneurs start businesses, or you help entrepreneurs create their dreams and make them come true. The way I would make you a thought leader is I would tell you, first and foremost, you got to start talking about topics that matter to entrepreneurs, that they consider important, that have pain associated with them. Maybe they're trying to grow their business. Maybe they're trying to find a way to scale. It doesn't matter. As long as you understand what those topics are and you have a skill set in helping them deal with problems in that area, they're going to be interested in hearing what you have to say, and you're going to be valuable to them. That makes you a thought leader. Thought leaders are valuable to people. So this woman that I just told you about, right, the doctor, she was valuable to professional married women over 45 because they loved their life, but they didn't love how they looked and felt. So she said, I'm going to help you look and feel just as good as you did in your 20s and 30s. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not a woman. I'm a man. But I've heard women like feeling pretty and beautiful. I've heard this. I've heard it might be true. So, It
is true, right? It is true.
So that's what made her a thought leader. And right now, she doesn't have to go looking for clients. Clients come looking for her. That's what makes thought leadership powerful. You become sought after.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So in that process of becoming a thought leader, sometimes, controversial views obtain. So for example, you mentioned something quite controversial earlier when we were speaking, about the pandemic and the vaccine. That is quite controversial because a lot of people are quite opposed to, your viewpoint. And this is just one instance, right? This is just one thing. Because you said it, I'm bringing that up. So some people were big on taking the vaccine, others were not. When you are entering or thinking about being a thought leader, how important is controversy? Should you stay away from controversy, or should you actually walk into controversy?
back when all of this was going on, I was very much in the minority in my viewpoints, but I'm not anymore. Today, many of the people who agreed with everything then are looking back and see that they were fooled, that they were taken advantage of. Their trusting nature was abused. So today, it's not really much of a controversy, certainly not in Canada. Although back in 2022, yeah, people were pressuring me to do what they were doing, and I wouldn't do it. And if you're going to be a thought leader, you've got to embrace the truth. It's not about embracing controversy for the sake of it, but the truth is the truth, you know? And the truth of the matter is, that wasn't a vaccine. That was an experimental therapy drug. Vaccines take 8 years to develop, not 9 months. There's a reason for that. I have family members who've been in the medical field for decades, and they'll tell you nobody develops a vaccine in 9 months. It's impossible. There's studies that need to be done and double-blind tests and so forth. So I just spoke the truth. I said, this isn't a vaccine. It's an experimental therapy drug. But people were freaking out because everyone was calling it a vaccine. It was ridiculous. In the late 50s and 60s in the United States, there was a man named Martin Luther King Jr. I'm sure you've heard his name, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Today, everybody loves him. But I can tell you back then, everybody did not love him. There was a lot of people who hated his guts, right? There was a lot of people who thought that he was a bad guy, and they were trying to, you know, when he would go into parts of the United States South where there was legal racial discrimination, legal, like the government mandated it. And he would get up and speak and say that this goes against the American Declaration of Independence, you know, the part that says all men are created equal. He says it goes against that. Well, that was true. What he was saying was factual. But these people in government power would get up and say, you're crazy. It does not go against that. But the truth was, if you read that phrase, all men are created equal, there's no wiggle room. It doesn't say except for this kind of man or that kind of man. It says all men are created equal. Now, today, everybody goes, Martin Luther King, oh my God, we love him. But back then, not everybody said that. But Martin Luther King didn't care because he had a commitment to the truth. And he was willing to speak the truth. And he understood that speaking the truth would upset certain people. But his commitment to the truth was absolute. And it was more important that he speak the truth than it was for him not to upset people. Now, you have to understand, the King family was, you know, royalty in the Black community in the South. They were very wealthy. They were very successful. He could have easily not rocked the boat, okay? There was nothing in it for him financially. He lost money because of what he did to get there. But none of that mattered to him. What mattered to him was he saw an injustice. He saw that the truth needed to be spoken, and he needed to right that injustice.
Yeah.
So I'm not Martin Luther King. I'm Nicky Billou, okay? But I admired Martin Luther King, and I admire his dedication to the truth. And I'm not going to lie to make anybody happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what a legacy he has left, being a thought leader, being able to go beyond the opinions. And so my final question to you, Nicky, is the opinions of others. How important, you know, are those opinions when you are trying to push ahead with thought leadership, knowing that you have a following, you have a community that you're building? What role do the naysayers play in that thought leadership development?
I don't pay attention to naysayers. I don't think you should either. Somebody says, I don't like you, I don't like what you have to say. Well, it's a free country. You have the right to your opinion. And I have the right to leave you behind. And that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. You know what? It's a good place for me to bring in my community connection segment. And in this segment is where I invite you, my community, to share your reviews, your feedback, your questions, whatever it is you want to share with, you know, as you engage with us. So this week I'm sharing a podcast review from Mike Sipple Jr. out of the USA. Thank you, Heneka, for your content and passion to bring other stories to life for us. Keep leading well and building leaders worth following. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mike Sipple Jr. I appreciate your feedback. We've hosted LeaderCast together, you in the USA and I've led in Jamaica So it's so good hearing from you. And before I continue with another segment, I have been talking with Nicky Billou, and Nicky has just been sharing how important it is really to be a thought leader and to leave a legacy behind, to shift the current way of thinking, not to necessarily look on what the naysayers are saying, in fact, ignore them. We want to create a powerful message, talk about topics that are important to others and that will have pain associated to it. And that's one of the ways that you become a thought leader. So as we wrap, Nicky, please just share your final thoughts on just a tip in becoming a thought leader and give us your contact details, as well as you mentioned that free success call that you shared with me before the interview.
Absolutely. I'll do it by sharing a final quick story.
Yes.
There was another woman, a doctor. Her name's Dr. Dia. She met us. And this is a woman with a big heart, wants to help people. She was in the world of cosmetic surgery and medical spas. She really wanted to help folks in that world be more successful, because a lot of them don't do business very well. They leave a lot of money on the table. But nobody knew who she was. And her messaging was very complex and complicated. She would talk about injectors and throughputs, and oh my God, your head would hurt when you listen to her talk about all this stuff, right? And I just said, Dia, you got to stop. I said, bottom line, Dia, how do you help people? What's the benefit? She says, well, people are leaving 5-10 million on the table. I show them how to recover that. I said, that's your message. And when she started doing that message, well, we helped her set up an event. She had 12 people there. 4 of them were very interested in her message. One of them gave her a $550,000 check that night to start working with her. 32 days later, she got another $500,000 check as a result of that meeting. That was $1,050,000 in 32 days in revenue that her business generated just from dialing their message. And I'm just saying this to you. If you're in business and you're not making the money you deserve to make, you're one great connection away. Someone like me who can believe in you, who can show you the right thing to do from a complete, comprehensive, beautiful transformation in your income and your future trajectory. You should always remember that.
Awesome. All right. So how might we get in touch with you, Nicky?
Well, if you want to do a success call with me, go to ecircleacademy.com/appointment. That's ecircleacademy.com/appointment.
And that's for the success call. In terms of you're on social media, are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on all of them. I'm the only Nicky Billou in the world, at Nicky Billou.
Okay, good to know. All right, let's go into our trending now. Personal branding and thought leadership have become more essential than ever in today's professional landscape. According to LinkedIn, 61% of professionals reported that personal branding has been a critical tool for advancing their careers in the past year. By establishing a unique personal brand and positioning themselves as thought leaders, individuals can gain greater visibility, they can gain credibility and opportunities within their industries. And that's what's trending now. Nicky Billou, what a delight you have been. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible insight with me today.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So, of course, you provided a number of valuable gems on thought leadership, business growth, and mindset, because you did talk about, ignoring the naysayers. And it does take a level of focus and commitment and stick-to-itiveness to ignore the noise that's happening around you.
Amen.
So sharing that. So thank you so much again. And to all our listeners, our peak performers, this conversation is your call to action. Step into your greatness now and lead from the heart, leaving your legacy. What it is you want your audience to know about you, what it is you want that is near and dear to your heart. What's your why? I mean, that keeps coming back to me over and again, because when you have that big picture vision, then it drives everything else. So keep pushing forward, stay energized, and know that your best days are yet to come. And of course, I ask you a tiny favor, that you help us to reach more listeners by leaving a rating or review, whether it's on Apple or if you leave a rating on Spotify. It would mean the world to me. Of course, that is one of the ways that you ensure that other persons find the podcast, just as how you found it. So thank you so much in advance for sharing. For those who've already done so, my love for you has been elevated, right? I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter, and this has been the Entrepreneurial You. Stay blessed, stay motivated, and keep shining. And here's what I want you to affirm with me today. I am more than just the engine of my business. I'm a creator, a leader, and a visionary. I trust myself to build a life that I love, and everything else will fall into place. I've got this. Until next time, as I mentioned before, I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter, and this has been the Entrepreneurial You. Keep shining. Thank you so much to our sponsors, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and of course, Heneka Watkis-Porter.com. Walk good, walk good, walk good.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.